The cameras flashed incessantly as Secretary of State Marco Rubio approached the podium, his expression unreadable, yet somehow more determined than ever before. The White House press room fell into an unprecedented silence, the usual whispers and shuffling of papers completely absent, as journalists sensed something momentous was about to unfold. Rubio's trusted aide, Elena Vasquez, stood slightly behind him, clutching a sealed envelope that had been the subject of wild speculation throughout Washington for the past 48 hours. The tension in the air was palpable as Rubio adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and with steady hands placed a document bearing the presidential seal before him. No one could have anticipated what would come next, an announcement that would not only reshape American foreign policy, but potentially alter the global political landscape for decades to come. Michael Chen, chief political correspondent for The Atlantic Tribune, had been tracking Rubio's career since his early Senate days in Florida. The seasoned reporter sat in the third row, noting how different Rubio appeared today, the characteristic warmth in his eyes replaced by an intensity he'd never witnessed before. Jessica Blackwell, Rubio's longtime chief of staff, had called Michael personally this morning, something she'd never done in their 15 years of professional acquaintance. The secretary's inner circle had maintained absolute secrecy about today's announcement, with not even the president's closest advisors fully briefed on what was coming. Washington had been abuzz with theories ranging from Rubio's unexpected resignation to rumors of a groundbreaking peace accord in the Middle East. The capital hadn't experienced such anticipation since the historic Supreme Court nomination battle 3 years earlier, when Rubio had played a crucial behind-the-scenes role in securing the confirmation. Whatever was about to happen, Michael knew his deadline for tonight's edition had just become meaningless. Behind the scenes, Raymond Thompson, the president's national security advisor, paced nervously in his West Wing office, watching the live stream with growing apprehension. He had worked alongside Rubio for years, navigating complex international crises from North Korean nuclear provocations to Venezuelan political instability. Their relationship had weathered fierce policy disagreements and celebrated diplomatic triumphs, building a partnership rooted in mutual respect despite their occasionally divergent worldviews. Thompson had first detected subtle changes in Rubio's demeanor 3 months ago, following the secretary's unusual 2-week diplomatic mission to 5 African nations, a trip conducted with minimal staff and unusual operational security measures. Whatever revelation Rubio had encountered during those quiet meetings with African leaders had profoundly affected him, transforming his approach to diplomatic engagement and accelerating certain classified initiatives. Thompson glanced at the secure phone on his desk, knowing it would start ringing incessantly the moment Rubio finished speaking. Catherine Rubio watched her husband from their home in Virginia, their 3 children gathered around her on the living room sofa. She had always been Marco's strongest supporter, from his early political campaigns in Florida to his unexpected nomination as Secretary of State. The private conversation they'd had last night had left her both proud and concerned, proud of his unwavering commitment to his principles, yet concerned about the personal cost this announcement would exact on their family. Their oldest daughter, Sophia, squeezed her mother's hand as her father began to speak, sensing the historical significance of the moment. The Rubio family had endured the relentless scrutiny that came with high-profile political life, weathering both criticism and praise with a distinctive grace that had earned them respect across the political spectrum. Catherine had helped Marco rehearse his speech until nearly dawn, offering suggestions to soften certain phrases while strengthening others. Now, as millions of Americans tuned in to hear her husband's words, she silently recited the speech alongside him, feeling every carefully chosen word resonate with their shared vision for America's role in the world. Across Washington, key political figures gathered around televisions and devices, their schedules cleared for Rubio's announcement. Senator Eleanor Williams, chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, cancelled her fundraising lunch the moment the press conference was announced. Ambassador James Harrington cut short his diplomatic reception at the British Embassy to return to his office, instructing his staff to prepare briefing materials on potential implications, regardless of what Rubio might announce. Even former presidents had cleared their schedules, recognizing that Rubio's gravitas and position meant this was no ordinary political moment. The stock market had already responded to the speculation, with defense and technology stocks experiencing unusual volatility as traders positioned themselves for potential shifts in international relations or trade policy. Social media platforms reported record-breaking engagement as the live stream began, with political analysts from across the ideological spectrum offering real-time commentary and predictions that would likely be rendered obsolete within minutes. The press room erupted into chaos as Rubio revealed the first part of his announcement, an unprecedented diplomatic breakthrough with three traditionally adversarial nations, achieved through months of secret negotiations. Reporters frantically typed on their phones and laptops, editors-in-chief demanded immediate analysis, and political rivals scrambled to formulate responses. Elena Vasquez distributed detailed briefing materials that had been kept under lock and key until this very moment, revealing the intricate framework of agreements that Rubio had personally orchestrated. The secretary maintained his composure, despite the growing commotion, methodically explaining how this diplomatic initiative would fundamentally restructure American foreign policy priorities for the first time since the Cold War. Veteran White House correspondent Samantha Jeffries, known for her unflappable demeanor, visibly gasped when Rubio revealed the economic implications, a series of trade agreements that would create an estimated 3 million American jobs while simultaneously addressing critical human rights concerns that had previously deadlocked negotiations. The international phone lines at the State Department lit up as foreign governments sought clarification and additional details, their ambassadors having received no advance warning of this seismic shift in American diplomatic posture. Michael Chen's analytical mind raced to connect the dots as Rubio continued his address, recognizing that what initially seemed like a singular policy announcement was actually unfolding as something much more significant. The secretary was methodically building towards something larger, each revealed initiative connecting to form a comprehensive vision that transcended traditional political categorizations. When Rubio paused to take a sip of water, a moment reminiscent of his famous State of the Union response years earlier, Michael noticed a subtle change in the secretary's expression, a momentary flicker that suggested the most significant revelation was yet to come. The assembled journalists leaned forward almost in unison, their competitive instincts temporarily suspended as they collectively sensed the historical weight of the moment. White House staffers, who had initially planned to monitor the announcement, briefly now stood transfixed by television screens throughout the executive mansion, regular duties forgotten as Rubio's carefully constructed narrative approached what was clearly its pivotal moment. The secretary squared his shoulders, made momentary eye contact with Elena Vasquez, and then delivered the statement that would dominate headlines across the globe for weeks to come. The final minutes of Rubio's speech left the nation in collective shock as he unveiled not just a policy initiative, but a fundamentally new approach to American leadership on the world stage. Political commentators struggled to categorize the announcement within familiar partisan frameworks, as Rubio had masterfully incorporated elements that appealed across ideological divides, while challenging conventional thinking within his own political camp. Social media platforms nearly crashed as millions shared their immediate reactions, the announcement transcending political discourse to become a genuine cultural moment. Foreign leaders issued hastily prepared statements ranging from enthusiastic endorsement to cautious optimism, while diplomatic experts began the complex work of analyzing the long-term implications for global stability and cooperation. Elena Vasquez efficiently managed the transition to a brief question-and-answer session, selecting journalists with precision to ensure the key aspects of the announcement received proper clarification. Throughout it all, Rubio maintained the steady, principled demeanor that had defined his tenure as secretary, refusing to indulge in either triumphalism or defensive posturing, even when faced with skeptical questioning. Raymond Thompson's secure line rang precisely as he had anticipated, the president requesting his immediate presence in the Oval Office to discuss next steps. As he gathered his notes and prepared to navigate the coming whirlwind of implementation challenges, Thompson reflected on how thoroughly Rubio had just rewritten the playbook for American diplomacy. The initiatives announced today would require months of intensive follow-through, complex congressional negotiations, and delicate international coordination, all while managing the inevitable resistance from entrenched interests and ideological opponents. Yet despite these formidable challenges, Thompson felt an unfamiliar sense of optimism as he headed toward the Oval Office, recognizing that Rubio's vision offered a genuine opportunity to break through long-standing impasses that had frustrated American policymakers for generations. The announcement had cleverly incorporated accountability mechanisms and transparent benchmarks that would make obstruction difficult, while creating political incentives for cooperation across traditional divides. Thompson mentally prepared his initial recommendations for the president, knowing that the window for capitalizing on today's momentum would be brief but potentially transformative. Catherine turned off the television as the press conference concluded, embracing each of her children before answering the flood of messages lighting up her phone. The family had prepared for this day, understanding that their lives would be transformed by Marco's announcement. There would be intensified scrutiny, new security protocols, and adjustments to their carefully maintained balance of public and private life. Sophia had already received messages from school friends reacting to her father's announcement, while their younger children understood only that their father had done something important that made their mother simultaneously proud and thoughtful. Catherine responded first to the message from Marco's parents, elderly now, but still deeply engaged in their son's career and the political principles that had guided his remarkable journey from their humble Miami neighborhood to the highest echelons of global diplomacy. She then began organizing the family's schedule for the coming days, knowing that Marco would need their steadfast support as he navigated the consequences of today's watershed moment. Despite the challenges ahead, Catherine felt profound gratitude that her husband had found the courage to transcend political calculation in service of his genuine conviction about America's highest purpose in the world. 3 months after Rubio's historic announcement, the tangible impacts were becoming evident across multiple sectors of American society and throughout the international system. Implementation teams worked around the clock to translate the Secretary's bold vision into operational reality, navigating bureaucratic hurdles and resistance with varying degrees of success. The initial skepticism from certain political quarters had gradually transformed into grudging acknowledgement as early results demonstrated the viability of Rubio's approach. Foreign governments that had initially hedged their positions were now actively participating in the framework he had established, recognizing the substantial benefits of engagement over resistance. Elena Vasquez had been promoted to oversee a special task force dedicated to monitoring compliance with the new agreements, her exceptional organizational skills proving essential to maintaining momentum amid the inevitable complications of such sweeping changes. Public opinion polls showed growing support for the initiative as Americans began experiencing concrete benefits in their communities, though partisan divisions persisted in evaluations of Rubio's personal leadership. Media coverage had evolved, from sensationalist headlines to more substantive analysis, as the complexity and nuance of the Secretary's vision became apparent through implementation. Michael Chen published his definitive analysis of Rubio's announcement and its aftermath, a deeply researched piece that became required reading throughout Washington and in diplomatic circles worldwide. His article revealed previously unknown details about the genesis of Rubio's initiative during that secretive African diplomatic tour, where the Secretary had witnessed firsthand both the limitations of traditional American approaches and the untapped potential for genuinely transformative engagement. The piece explored how Rubio had methodically built support for his vision within key constituencies, while maintaining the operational security necessary to prevent premature leaks that might have undermined delicate negotiations. Michael's reporting confirmed what many had suspected, that Rubio had risked significant political capital on an initiative that defied conventional categorization and challenged entrenched interests across the political spectrum. The article sparked renewed discussion about the possibility of a more constructive approach to foreign policy, one that transcended the reflexive partisanship that had previously dominated national security discourse. Even Rubio's longtime critics acknowledged the Secretary's political courage, regardless of their assessment of the policy's ultimate merit or sustainability. Secretary Rubio stood at his office window overlooking the National Mall, reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year as he prepared for his upcoming testimony before Congress. The implementation of his initiative had encountered both expected obstacles and surprising allies, testing his leadership and conviction in ways he couldn't have anticipated when he first stepped to that podium. He had weathered personal attacks, navigated institutional resistance, and maintained his characteristic equanimity through periods of intense pressure and scrutiny. The framed photo on his desk captured the moment immediately after his announcement, surrounded by his family, their faces reflecting a mixture of pride, love, and awareness of the challenges ahead. Beside it sat a handwritten note from a young Foreign Service officer, thanking him for restoring her faith in American diplomacy's potential for positive impact in the world. As Rubio gathered his materials for the congressional hearing, he felt neither triumphant nor defensive about what he had set in motion, but rather a profound sense of purpose and responsibility to see it through. Whatever history ultimately judged of his announcement and its consequences, he had acted according to his deepest convictions about America's role in building a more just, secure, and prosperous world order. And that knowledge brought him a quiet peace amid the continuing storm of implementation and adaptation that lay ahead.